Yeah, I mean, I have my own ideas, but as I've been moving forward, the path has kind of just been unfolding in front of me. So I don't really want to fight that path. I'm
Yeah.
not sure where it's going. I know it's going somewhere,
Yeah.
and I know I'm going to be happy with where it goes.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Ultimate Ambitions. Looking forward to today's conversation, and I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. Seth Fontaine is here with us today. And man, your journey has been quite the interesting one. And I know that our listeners and viewers who are on their path to where they want to be next, their goal in life to reach their ultimate ambition, are probably going to get a lot of value out of your story and how you got to where you are today. Some more traditional ways, some unconventional. So where did your journey begin for you? Were you a West Coast guy, or did you get here from somewhere else?
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of LA in a town called Upland. It's maybe about 45 minutes outside of LA, maybe 50 minutes, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Just take the 210 east towards San Bernardino, and it's not quite San Bernardino, but it's in that area.
Okay, so people know San Bernardino, but it's in that vicinity.
Yep.
So growing up, was was that part of your world? Was there anyone in your family involved in that? Like what led you toward that let me say that industry?
Yeah, so my mom has been a huge influence on me and my music preference.
Mm-hmm.
Her and I driving to school growing up, we'd always put on songs and just belt them out in the car together.
What kind of songs?
Anything. I mean, she was big in, any kind of 80s music. So,
Okay.
and then we also loved our Disney songs and everything. The Tarzan soundtrack with Phil Collins was one of our favorites to sing along, and I'm talking like second, third grade.
Oh, yeah.
And it was always fun. My sister is an incredible singer as well. So she's been in music her entire life.
Okay.
I actually never got into music because I'm deaf in one ear.
Mm-hmm.
And, my entire life I was told I was tone deaf, and, music was just really I never really clicked. I picked up piano. I tried to play guitar a couple times, and nothing really ever clicked.
Mm-hmm.
So I always just thought like music wasn't for me. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it wasn't until last year I kind of finally had the epiphany, like, no, music is what I need to be in. You know what I mean?
No kidding.
Yeah.
So what was it that clicked for you?
So to be honest, I really just dove into my spirituality last year. I've been doing sales and marketing for almost 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. It's great. At this point, it's pretty easy for me. You know what I mean? Like I've gotten so many reps in. I know what works, what doesn't work. I know when things are going to work out well. I could do it quickly, efficiently, and easily, which is great. And I kind of just had that thought to myself, like, is this really what I want to do for, the next 30, 40, 50 years? And it didn't feel like it was something I want to do for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So I started really diving in, listening to a lot of like Wayne Dyer and Esther and Jerry Hicks and all those people who I really, really admire the way that they talk and think about problems.
Yeah.
And really just kind of dove into like meditation and my spirituality. And through that process and that discovery, music is what came out of it. And I just remember I was listening to music one day. I was laying in bed, just kind of chilling, winding down from the day. I had my dog cuddling with me, and I was doing like this meditation thing while I was listening to some music. And I was like, I got to get into the music industry, man. Like I just love it so much. I'm going to festivals. I go to concerts all the time. I'm always out in the nightlife, not to be part of the nightlife, but because I like to listen to music in the nightlife. You know what I mean? So, I decided to make the pivot, and I started managing this DJ last year. He's, to this day, he's one of the most incredibly talented DJs I've ever heard in my entire life. Okay. Really cool guy, but it ended up not working out.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never been a manager before, a music manager. I had no idea what to do with the music industry, but I just know through the connections and the network that I've had that I was able to like piece things together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was able to get this guy a couple gigs, and then I also got him, essentially free studio time and a mentor who's going to teach him how to produce music on top of the DJing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the frustration that I experienced was it'd be like an hour or two before a gig, and he'd be like, hey, I can't go. Or the day of the studio, he'd be like, hey, I forgot I have a dentist appointment today, and I can't make the studio today. And it's like, come on, man. So I eventually sat him down, and I was like, hey, man, like if we're going to continue to work together, like you are so talented, and like the only limitation that you're experiencing is you. You know what I mean? I'm providing the opportunities, and like you gotta be able to take action here. He's like, you're right. Starting Monday, I think it was like a Thursday or Friday. He's like, starting Monday, we're going to hit this 1,000 times harder. Like, I'm ready. Let's do it. And so I intentionally didn't call him or text him to see if he would step it up. And I haven't heard from him since October.
No kidding.
So
That was it.
that was it. So, you know, after a month, we had that conversation late October. And then after a month went by in December, I was like, you know, F it. At this point, I'm just going to do it myself and see what happens, you know?
Really?
So I bought a little DJ rig, a really cheap intro one, fell in love with it, and then hit up that producer that was going to teach him. And I was like, hey, you know, I know we kind of burnt that bridge a little bit because
We didn't show up.
yeah, and it wasn't once. It was over and over and over again. And I know the guy was getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, listen, here's where I'm at. You know, I would love your advice. Is this something that you think I should do, or should I go find another DJ? Because like I want to be part of the music industry. I just don't know where I fit.
Yeah.
And he's like, honestly, dude, you should just do it. I was like, well, I've never touched an instrument. At the time I was 28. Now I'm 29. He's like, I'm deaf in one ear. I gave him every excuse. And he's like, that doesn't matter. Just do it.
Yeah.
He's like, and I'll help. If you are really serious about this, he's like, I'll help you.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you know, pretty much for the first 6 months, probably 2 or 3 times a week, I'd drive down to Orange County and be in his studio for hours and hours at a time. And he just taught me everything he could.
Yeah.
And so it's been an awesome journey, man. And it's the first time in my life where everything seems to just like fall naturally into place without any kind of resistance.
Yeah.
And everything just seems to be lining up perfectly, and almost like in like a divine plan is like happening before my face, which is or before me right now, which is really cool. So it's super humbling, and I'm really excited about where the direction we're going.
You're saying a lot of things just kind of fell in place.
Yeah.
But I listen to Esther as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things she always says is, don't argue for your limitations.
Yeah.
And it sounds like when you had this conversation with this gentleman, you're like, well, I've never touched DJ equipment before. I'm deaf in one ear. You were arguing for your limitations. And he kind of was like, all right, yeah, forget about that. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah. So sometimes we need those people who tell us don't argue, although we hear it, right?
100%.
And I tell people that all the time. Sometimes I'm better at telling people what they should and shouldn't do than I am at telling myself
100%.
what to, you know, it's so wild. Now you had a progression, right? Because you were involved in the marketing world.
Yep.
So let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
And, you know, how did you get into that marketing space?
Yeah, so in college, I think like most college kids, you know, had really no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. That's kind of what my family was pushing me to be. And
Yeah.
I agreed. I looked up what doctors make, and I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Lamborghini, here I come.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right. I was growing up with an Indian household, so
Yeah.
that was the only thing you could do. Yeah, if you were not becoming a doctor in an Asian household, you were like homeless.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were like, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, and to be honest, I hated it. I hated every minute of it. You know, I felt like I was banging my head against the wall trying to understand these concepts and whatnot. Ended up stumbling, funny enough, across a Ty Lopez video, you know, and saw that there's, you know, he's like, do you hate college and this and that? You should do this. And I was like, I do hate college. So ended up taking his 67 steps, and that really helped reframe my thinking. I think that was back in like 2015 or 2016 when he released that.
Yeah.
And then started diving in, exploring entrepreneurship. The college I was going to at the time had this program for entrepreneurs. And my business partner at the time and I started this company called Urban Vinyl. It was a headphone company. And because we had a physical product and actually started making sales on our own while we were in college, we ended up winning. It was an 8-week program where every week you're pitching to investors and business owners that are affiliated with the college.
Yeah.
And they would give you advice and feedback on your pitch.
Okay.
And essentially at the end, you're pitching to real investors, and whoever wins out of the competition gets a $15,000 grant to start your company. And so fast forward.
It's like a Shark Tank-ish kind of thing.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
All
So fast forward to the end, we ended up winning the competition, which was a blessing. And my business partner decided to stay at the college.
Okay.
And then I decided to, you know, pursue what we were doing. And end up a year later, we got rated the #1 headphone according to some, I forget what audiophile magazine it was, but it was one of those.
Wow.
Yeah, we made the headphones for producers and for like musicians.
Okay.
So I guess that was my first like intro into the music industry, because
Okay.
we worked with about 50 different musicians. No one big or you know, nothing crazy, but some of them had some good traction. A few of them had quite a few million streams on some of their songs and whatnot.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun to like kind of get my feet wet. That was my first, like I said, in the experience with the music industry, even though I was on the hardware side.
Yeah.
And then the following year, we got rated in the top 10. And yeah, it was just great. And so I met Josh around that time, Josh Avon. I think you just had him.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the best guys I've ever met. We could sit here and I could talk all day about how great Josh is. But yeah, so he ended up getting connected with me, and he mentored me for about a year. And then at the end of the year, he ended up offering me a position at Curio.
No kidding.
And said yes and haven't looked back. It's been incredible. You know, Josh has just taught me so many things about life, about business, about marketing, about sales, about what it takes to be a man, you know, all these different things. And I can go on and on about, again, I can never say enough good things about Josh. He's an incredible human being. But yeah, and it just led to a lot of opportunities and a lot of connections. And that ultimately led to my next project, which was starting a film production company with one of my best friends, Justin. We started that in 2021, made our first film last year.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just a short film, but it went through the festival track, won a few awards, including Best Actor.
What's it called?
It's called What Matters.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a 15-minute short film about like Black Lives Matter.
Uh-huh.
Our lead actor was Malcolm Kelly, who was, you ever watch Lost?
Yeah.
So he was the little kid Walt.
Oh, yeah.
So he's just an incredibly talented actor, and 100% deserved the Best Actor award.
No kidding.
His emotion and his way to portray the character that he was playing was just incredible.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
that sounds like you talk about that very like passe, like, oh, shot a film, was in the festivals. Like that can't be an easy road to produce a film. And, you know, you say 15 minutes, but producing a 10-minute film is not easy.
yeah.
Where did you get the insights to, like, how did you know? Like, did you just like kind of just go at it? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to, like, for the average person that might be watching
Yeah.
or listening, and they're like, yeah, I would love to do a short film.
Yeah.
Maybe that's their aspiration, that's their ambition. Where do you start? I would have no idea.
Yeah, same.
Like, so what did you, that's like incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing when I decide I'm going to do something, like the first thing I do is maybe it's just my personality, but I become obsessed with it. And I need, it's maybe an OCD thing where I need to learn every single thing about that industry or that project, whatever it is that I'm working on, and I'll become obsessed with it. And I'll just, throughout the entire day, I'll be reading books, I'll be watching videos. As I'm going to bed, I'm watching YouTube videos about the subject. As I'm waking up, I'm watching YouTube videos, like brushing my teeth, making breakfast. I just become immersed in whatever it is I need to become immersed in.
Yeah.
And then I use that to, you know, put my best foot forward and then, you know, and take my best swing at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And don't go watch the film. I don't think it's a great film, if I'm being completely honest. It was my first film, so
Yeah.
But what I am proud of is, you know, 4 years of business school or film school wouldn't have come close to the amount of knowledge and experience that I got from that. You know what I mean? Like what I learned in those 2 weeks of producing this film is exponentially more. What's the word I'm looking for? It's just exponentially better than anything I think college could have taught you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of like language immersion. Like I took a language, French, in high school for 4 years.
Okay.
And then I went to France
Yeah.
for a month.
Yep.
And in that month, I learned more French
Yep.
and became more fluent in it than the
Yep.
4 years. So just being thrown in the mix,
Yep.
it just had a value to it because you were hearing it every day. You were listening to it every day. You were forced to communicate in the language. So you immersing yourself with just watching the videos, going to sleep with it, waking up with it was like me actually being in France, you know?
Yes.
So that's how you did it.
That's
So
the best way to do it.
Yeah,
You know? It's
yeah.
just, you're never going to 100% be ready. You know, you just got to kind of throw yourself into it and give it your best, you know?
Yeah. So when you talk about Curio for a second,
Sure.
because Josh, I had dinner with Josh last night. It was incredible, but
Yeah.
he's a guy that doesn't like to talk about himself too
Nope.
much, right?
Nope.
So he was on here, and we're like, wait, did we even talk about Curio? So tell me about Curio.
So I'll brag on Josh's behalf.
Thank
know?
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, because he won't.
Because he won't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so Curio is one of the top marketing agencies in the world, according to Facebook. You know, we manage hundreds of millions of dollars. We help generate billions of dollars for our clients. We have a couple different verticals that we do. Facebook ads is one of our bread and butter. Like I said, Meta has told us that we're one of the top 3 agencies globally, according in terms of performance. We have also partners on the email marketing side with Klaviyo, who has told us, we're one of the top 2 agencies, again, in terms of performance. Yotpo, we're the #1 SMS marketing agency. So we've won a lot of great awards, and Josh just has this incredible ability to find the best in the industry and then incentivize them to come work with us.
No kidding.
Yeah, he does. He does. I mean, you got to see it firsthand last night with dinner. He's very intentional about how he cultivates experiences to make it a warm, welcoming, fun environment for everybody. And then in that environment, your strengths are allowed to come out, and he gives you the freedom and the tools to do what you want to do, because he trusts you. He empowers you to do the best that you possibly can, because he puts that trust into you, and then that is reflected in the work that our team is able to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think having, I don't want to say like a boss, but in this situation, that believes in you and is going to allow you to kind of spread your wings and do and trust in you to go ahead. I know you're gifted enough. I know you're talented enough. Just go do it. I've worked for the opposite before.
Same.
And you're like, wow, this is not a comfortable situation.
Being micromanaged is the worst thing.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing. And I could sense that from him, that he would be if I were in that space, I'd be like, all right, this is a guy I want to work for. So it's great. So what kind of companies do you focus on at Curate? Is it like brands that are pushing products that have just Shopify stores, or
a lot of e-commerce? A lot of e-commerce. We do some financial companies too, some personal brands as well. We've worked with celebrities and musicians and whatnot as well.
Oh, so you just people who are just trying to get themselves out there.
Yeah, for sure.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So now, with the music production, and what's your ambition with that? Like, where do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I have my own ideas, but as I've been moving forward, the path has kind of just been unfolding in front of me, so I don't really want to fight that path. I'm not sure where it's going. I know it's going somewhere. And I know I'm going to be happy with where it goes. Ultimately, we've had so many different people come into the studio and, hear our music and kind of envision where they can see us, and we're taking little bits and pieces of all that. DJ, I don't really consider myself a DJ, even though that's just like the means to play my music live.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? But I would consider myself a producer first. And the whole thing that me and my partner, his name is Jimmy, he's the one who mentored me, but we're forming a little duo together it just makes sense to put our music out together, since we're working on so many different projects together. I'm now an equity partner in the studio as well. So but there's just a lot of overlap. So we just decided initially, when this thing started, he was going to kind of just mentor me a little bit, and then we were both going to go and do our own thing. But there's too much synergy, and both him and I agree it just makes sense for us to kind of come together, use our brand that we're forming together as like a trampoline to go wherever else we want to go. Once we have the attention and the notability and the credibility and everything, then we can do whatever we want to do, But ultimately, like, the vibe that we're trying to go for is, I would love festivals, so I'd love to play on a big stage at a festival. That obviously, who doesn't? That'd be fun. But then the other side of it is, like, I'd really like to have like a Burning Man kind of vibe, where it's like, it's low key, you're going there to just vibe out, kind of disassociate from, the world, and just kind of put your phone away for a little bit. And, to be honest, like, there's a lot of money in that community. So it's like, there's an opportunity there to make money. And then there's also an opportunity to create an incredible vibe there as well. You know what I mean? So there's two alignments there. I can feed myself and enjoy it at the same time. So that's kind of the vibe that we would like to go for.
So when you look at those festivals, I don't think people have an understanding of what it takes to put on one of those events. I've talked to a couple of people that are involved in some of like the back office goings on, and you see those events and they seem very like loose. Like it's like this open place and all these people are just coming in, but it is so not that. No. So what can you, to kind of go behind the veil a little bit, tell us about what it actually takes to put on an event like that.
Oh man, I'm still figuring that out. The biggest event I did so far is only a few thousand people. So, and I just showed up to play. So I didn't actually throw the event, but just kind of being behind the scenes and seeing what's going on, there's a lot of moving parts, like
Yeah.
just things that you wouldn't think of. One of my best friends is his family is the founders of Coachella, so I've been, so he's given me a lot of insight from like that perspective.
Okay.
And it's just there's months and months and months in planning. Like Coachella decides and don't quote me on this because I know this is going to go live, but from what I've heard through the grapevine, Coachella decides who their lineup is, by October. And
really?
and the festival doesn't go on until April. So there's months and months and months of planning that goes on. They employ, I think, over 1,000 people. Again, don't quote me on these numbers because I'm
Roughly.
it's through the grapevine, but there's like 1,000, there's a couple thousand employees that they hire, just to run the festival. And there's so many logistics that go on in the back end for something like Coachella, what I mean? But you got to make sure you got the lighting, you got the stage, you got the sound, you got the people who are going to be running the front door, people who are going to be creating an experience for any kind of VIP people. You got to make sure your artists are taken care of, and you got to make sure the guests are taken care of. The guests are getting their money's worth. There's food, there's bathrooms. There's a lot of different things that go on to it. And to be honest, like I don't really want to get involved too much on that side of it. That's a whole other animal. I just want to show up like, okay, you got a whole thing set up. Now I'll come and play.
You're the artist, so
you're
the
exactly.
One who gets the VIP treatment, so come on in.
Exactly.
Did you ever, at any point when you were younger, see yourself? Because you seem like you're very much like, this is what I want to do, so I'm just going to go at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it a try.
Yep.
And was there any ever fear of failure, of and how did you get past that? Because to say, you know what, I'm going to just deviate from a pretty solid career, going into medicine, being a doctor and having a paycheck, to go down that road, you seem like you had a lot of confidence going down the road, but there had to be some fear in that as well. Like, and maybe, I don't know if there was support from the family or not support from the family. So those are other hurdles. So for those people watching and listening that maybe their ambition is to go down this path that's not a traditional path, how did you navigate that? Like, what were some of the things that you had to deal with to say, you know what, that's a concern, and that's in the back of my mind, but this is what I want to do. Yeah. So I'm going to keep pushing through. And like, how did you kind of push out some of the noise there?
Yeah, I mean, the first 5 years of me being an entrepreneur were real rough. Like I was scraping by, couldn't make ends meet. I was $40,000 in credit card debt, trying to just float the businesses, not really making any money.
Yeah.
I was making like $1,100 a month, like just off of what we were doing, which obviously isn't sustainable.
No.
Out here, especially
no.
not out here.
Yeah.
And I love my family to death because they do want what's best for me. But because I wasn't making any money and because this was such an unconventional path, there was a lot of uncertainty. And I definitely felt that pressure and that uncertainty from the family until I started actually making decent money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then actually was able to like afford my own place and then take care of myself and crawl myself out of that debt hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I started getting the support from the family. But until then, it was kind of like I had to prove myself. And the way I look at it, this is a little bit morbid, but like I'm thinking from the end of my life, you know what I mean? Do I want to sit there and say, man, I wish I tried that. Man, I wish I tried that. Man, I wish I tried that. Or would I rather been, hey, at least I tried it and I know it didn't work out. Because either way, like worst case scenario, I try all this stuff and it doesn't work out. I can go back to school and I can study to be a doctor. Like there's a formula there to become a doctor and get a job. And you mean like the same thing with a lawyer or any kind of other industry. Like there's a formula there that works. You know what I mean? All you got to do is just go through and go through those motions. But to me, that doesn't bring me excitement and passion. And it doesn't wake me up in the morning. So I'm thinking, I'm young, I'm in my 20s. Might as well go swing for the fences, see what happens. Worst case scenario, I can always just go back. We have a long life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the end of my life, I want to be able to say like, at least I tried everything and now I don't have any regrets, because for me, my biggest fear is like, life is short. We do have a long life, but it is short at the end of the day. And there's so many things that I want to do. And in my mind, if this is you, like by all means, like go for it. You know what I mean? Because everybody wants to be a doctor, or not everybody, but there are people who do truly want to be a doctor or a lawyer. What have you? For me, like that just gives me so much anxiety thinking about being in a doctor's office for the next 50 years, doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I would just become numb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if that's the path that I need to take, it's there for me. But let me try everything else first just to make sure.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of was feeling the same thing when I was on the path to being a physician.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, and when I graduated school and I ultimately went into research, I found myself working in like an office and a lab. And I had that same moment one day where I'm wearing the lab coat. I'm in a lab. There's no windows. And I'm like, is this where I want to be for the next 50 years?
Yeah.
And I was like, no,
No.
this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. There were people who were saying, you're doing good things in that lab. You're
For
helping,
sure.
you know, you're whatever you're working on is going to have a greater good. But I just couldn't see myself in that situation. I was a people person.
100%.
I liked talking to people. I liked communicating. I liked being outdoors.
Yep.
I liked seeing people laugh and smile, and maybe I was, a part of that or a reason for that.
Yep.
When you're in a lab, I don't care what you're working on. You don't have that social aspect. We're social creatures,
Yep.
And that's why those things like those festivals are so popular.
Yeah.
They're social events.
Yeah.
People love going to them because they meet people from all around the world.
All around the world.
That are, all different backgrounds,
Yep.
yet they have this common bond.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wow, this is not what I want to do. So I had that moment too.
I love that.
And it's hard because there's a lot of pressure from family. Like,
course.
hey, and then there's that mindset of, what if I don't have a paycheck?
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna buy food and like, and I had to move back in with my mom,
Yep.
something I didn't want to do.
Yep.
I was in my 20s. I was like, oh man.
Yep.
But it was that I couldn't let my pride get in the way of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I don't care. All right, so maybe I got to move back in with my mom.
Yeah.
I've talked to people who said that they had to live out of their car for for a minute.
Yeah. I was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I've had my low times.
Yeah.
It was based on the decision I made.
For sure.
Yeah, I probably
Look at
wouldn't
you
have-
now.
Yeah. Now look what happened.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing led to another. Your start with Josh at Curio kind of had an interesting twist to it.
It did.
So, tell me how that story of that initial day, first day on the job.
Yeah. So while I was working on Urban Vinyl, I was also the director of marketing at Chevrolet in Orange County, working at a couple different dealerships. And one of the requirements was I needed to dress up in like a suit and tie, and like be business professional. And so the entire time that I was there, that was just what I was conditioned. And so Josh was mentoring me that entire time and eventually poached me away from that job, thankfully. And he's like, hey, I got a meeting. I have a couple meetings in LA. Let's go together and you can kind of just, learn the business of what you're getting into. I was like, cool, let's do it. And so because I was so conditioned to be in a suit and tie and knowing Josh, I was like, okay, he always dresses down, but this is also like a professional environment. So let me dress down a little bit, but still be dressed up. So I had like dress pants on, like dress shoes on, like a button down. I didn't have the jacket, like the blazer or anything or a tie, but like I still had like a nice dress, nice watch, you know what I mean? And I did my hair and everything and show up to Josh's house because we were going to carpool out to, this is when I was living in Orange County, showed up to Josh's house and we were going to carpool out to LA together. And he sees me and he's like, you're way too overdressed. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, like we might need to go shopping. I was like, wait, really? And he's like, he looks at his clock and he's like, actually, we don't have time. Let's just get on the road. He's like, it's okay. We'll deal with it later. So we drive all the way over to Calabasas, get to Calabasas, drive to like one of the top hills in Calabasas, go up this long driveway in Calabasas. And as we're driving up this driveway, it's littered with like nice cars. Like, there's Lamborghinis, there's Aston Martins, there's all these like G-Wagons, what have you. And I'm like, where the hell are we? And it's this big, huge mansion, essentially. We walk inside, they have me sign in, it takes my picture, and I'm like, this is the first time I'm experiencing any of this. Wow. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm looking at the house, and there's like chunks of the walls broken off, but they're rebuilt with Legos. I'm like, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So these guys come down, I forget their names, but they're like, hey, so great to see you. I'm so-and-so. They're like, let's go outside, and we'll start talking. They're like, Jake will be down soon. I'm like, Jake? Like, what the hell? What is he? Does he mean Jake Paul? And so we're sitting outside. It's maybe like 11:30. And then sure enough, here comes Jake Paul rolling out of bed in flip-flops, basketball shorts, and an oversized hoodie. And I'd immediately just go, wow, I'm way too overdressed for this.
Oh, my goodness.
That was my very first Curio meeting was with Jake Paul. And we were talking, I forget what it was. I think we were talking about maybe doing potentially the marketing for Maverick or one of their brands.
Okay.
I forget which one it was, but nothing ever came of it. But it was a good relationship to have regardless.
Yeah.
And then our next meeting, we go down to Elevator Studios and meet Dan Fleischman. And again, I'm just like, wow, I really am overdressed. Like this is, if you've ever been to Elevator Studios back when he was here in LA, it was essentially a gym. You know what I mean? Like it had first form stuff all over the place. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm definitely overdressed. And ever since then, I've never been dressed up ever again. Even for weddings, I still dress down now.
Do you? Even for weddings?
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather just be like this.
Yep. I'm wearing, any kind of like Nikes or whatever to the wedding. Like, I don't,
Yeah. Josh invited me to dinner.
Yeah.
And like, he sent me the invite. There was like this crazy private invite that came up for like this like supper club. I'm like, they still have supper clubs? I don't know. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm in like shorts and keds and like a t-shirt.
Yeah.
So I texted him. I'm like, hey, like, am I like good to go with like, And he's like, yeah, you're fine. Don't worry. Yeah, you're fine. And I was like, oh, okay. Cause I thought, I'm like, this is like a fancy place.
Yeah.
And of course he's like in jeans and a t-shirt and like his sneakers. I'm like, this is so wild. Cause like I came from a background where my mom always said, like, even as a little kid, you got to dress properly.
For sure.
You look proper. So I always was like, well, let me be overdressed and underdressed. But then I started getting into more and more situations, especially as you grow and you're like, man, some of these people are like really laid back. It's not like it's not like that. And actually, you dressing like that is making them feel uncomfortable.
It makes them feel uncomfortable. Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, wow, okay.
Maybe
so
that's why we didn't get the deal with Jake. I was overdressed.
Yeah, like, man, this guy brought his attorney to the meeting.
Exactly.
It's like, this ain't good. Oh man. So what's next, man? What's on like the horizon? What are you doing right now that you're excited about?
I mean, the work that we're doing at Curio, I'm so excited. I don't see myself, leaving Curio anytime soon. It's probably not going to be a forever thing, but I don't think it's a forever thing for Josh either, because Josh has his hands in so many different things.
Yeah.
But at least right now, it's exciting. We work with a lot of great clients. It's the way I look at it is like an incubator where I can get a lot out of it. Like I can put a lot into it and get a lot out of it, and essentially. And this don't take this the wrong way, but like essentially like I can use the client's money to learn, what I mean? Which is a really cool thing. Obviously we have the data and the experience, so we're going to do the best we possibly can, but like also I'm learning a lot from that too.
Yeah.
Which can just translate into anything else that I'm doing, whether it's the movie business, whether it's the music and whatnot.
Yeah.
Ultimate goal, for the movie business, I would love to make a Star Wars movie. I'm a big diehard Star Wars fan.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that would be a dream of mine is, maybe 5-10 years from now, we make a big blockbuster Star Wars movie. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be awesome.
And then, like I said, with the music, I just kind of want to, everything's falling in place with the music, and I'm really humbled and grateful about that.
Yeah.
So I want to keep that going and keep that momentum going. And eventually play on some big stages, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an element I learned from someone I spoke at their mastermind, and they had someone there who was the director of music for some film. And I was speaking to her, and she kind of had the music background, and she was telling me about the whole element that goes on for scores for films and music for films. Is that something you've ever thought about, kind of blending the two, like getting into music for, and scores for different films? Is that something you'd ever be interested in? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, so one of the things that he's now my partner, but at the time he still is mentoring me, Jimmy from the music side.
Yeah.
He gave me a ton of like masterminds, and one of them was the Hans Zimmer one, which is, to be honest, my favorite mastermind I've ever, or is it called mastermind or masterclass?
Masterclass.
That's what it was. Yeah. It's my favorite masterclass I've ever watched, and the way that Hans Zimmer talks about music and creating music and the feeling that he gets and and just how raw and vulnerable he is in that masterclass is really cool. Like he talks about, he's like, I open up the music software and think like, what the am I gonna do here? I have no idea how to score this film.
Yeah.
He's like, but then you start with one thing, and then you start with the next, and then one thing leads to another, and then one thing leads to another, which sparks another idea. And next thing you know, now you're Hans Zimmer scoring, scoring every single Christopher Nolan film. And so one of the things that I've taken from that is, we definitely want to have some kind of like cinematic vibe to our music. And so in that cinematic vibe, it can definitely be used, at festivals where we're essentially making music to be performing live, right?
Yeah.
So we can perform that music live at festivals, but it can also be used as a score for a film as well. So there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah. I was talking to Carson about that. He said he was listening to some of the music, and he was like, usually sometimes you meet someone, they're like a producer or whatever, and they're like, oh, here, let me play you some of, and he said he listened to some of your stuff. He was like, one after another was just awesome.
Oh,
and he's like, you got to listen to it. I'm like, oh, wow. So I can't wait for that. We'll listen
Thank you.
after the show. when you have someone who's maybe 18, 19 years old,
Sure.
17, whatever, in that range, and there's a lot of kids today that are looking at college and looking at a lot of people who didn't go to college or dropped out of college and are becoming hugely successful. Before we close, I want to get your take on this as someone who took that path. What's the one thing that you can tell them to do or tell them to focus on, or the most important character trait or whatever it might be that can help them on that journey if they're going to maybe take a path that, well, even if they're going to take a path that's traditional, go to school, get a job, whatever. To you now at this point in your life, you can look back like 10 years. What would you have liked to tell yourself at 19 that maybe would have accelerated your path to where you are today? I mean, you're further than most 29-year-old people I know. Like, it's incredible what you've done already.
Thank you.
But you can always say, man, if I can go back to being 19, what would that one thing be?
I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, if I just would have known. I always think about this too. Like, I have some kind of crazy fantasy in my head where I'm like, I wish I can just take everything I know now and go back 10 years, because then I'd be like buying Bitcoin at like $25. And I'd be playing the Instagram game way differently. You know what I mean? There's just all these things. Like, they say hindsight is obviously 20/20. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's one specific thing. I'll kind of give you like a bigger picture, if you will. But first things first, if you're going to go to college, there's no wrong answer with life. You know what I mean? It's whatever feels right to you and whatever aligns with you. So if you are going to go to college, I would say just don't take out any kind of loans for college unless you're 100% certain, like, I am going to be a doctor. This is my life calling. I'm going to be an attorney or whatever other careers there are. And you can say with 100% certainty that this is what you want to do. Don't take out a loan for college. Do what you can to get, sponsorships or what is it called?
Grants.
Grants. Yeah,
Yep.
there you go.
Yep.
Do what you can to get grants. Go to community college. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's the same education, no matter whether you're at a university or a community college. So don't invest in college unless it's something you're 100% certain, because you don't want to be like me, where 2-3 years into college, you're like, this isn't for me. And now all of a sudden you have all this debt that you need to pay off because, you decided to do something different. So don't do that. And again, unless you're 100% certain. And the other thing I would say is say yes to everything, try everything, because you never know what you're going to end up liking. I never thought I'd like music. And then here it is, 28 years into my life, I'm trying it and I fell in love with it, and I would have never known that had I not tried it. So say yes to everything, say yes to traveling. Anytime there's any kind of experience, obviously don't go into debt to do these experiences, but if it does put a little financial strain on you, I would say still do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's been times where I'm like, man, I got $1,000 in the bank, but this trip's going to cost $500. I'm going to do it, and the amount that I learned from that trip and the experience I got from that trip, experiencing different cultures, experiencing different people, different foods, different ways of thinking, different ways of life. Just the more exposure you can get to different things, I think ultimately helps define what you want to do in life, But if you never experience anything, you never try different things, you just kind of stay in the same rut that you've always been in, you're not going to know, So try everything, say yes to everything, say yes to life, any kind of opportunity that, even if you think it's not going to be something exciting, you never know, So just say yes to it and figure it out.
Yeah, even if it's scary.
Even if it's scary, especially if it's scary.
Yeah, even if it's scary. It's always scary, especially things that cost money. It's always scary.
Yep.
And one of the things that changed my world that I did, and it was the scariest thing because I didn't have the money, and I did it because it was a mastermind, and it was actually here in LA, and I said, you know what, this is an opportunity to meet some great people and level up. I knew I wasn't at the level of the people who were going to be in the room.
Yep.
And I scratched together the money, and it was like $10,000. I was like, oh my God, this is like the most I've ever paid.
Yeah.
And it was for a weekend.
Yep.
And I'm like, who pays $10,000 to go to something for a weekend?
The high level executives do, the people that you want to be with.
Yes.
Yep.
And at the time, I was like, man, this is nerve wracking. And then I talked to someone, and they were like, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
And I said, I want to be those people. Like, well, then you got to be around those people.
Yep.
And this is what you got to do. What are you going to do? Just look at that $10,000 in your bank account and just hope for the best? No, put it to use.
Yep.
And going to that first mastermind, this is going back years ago, changed my life. I
that.
still talk to people today from that mastermind They have introduced me to people that have changed my life, helped accelerate my business. I'm investing in multi-million-dollar real estate projects
Oh, I
with a
love
guy
it.
I met at that thing. It is the most insane thing, that one thing.
I love
So, like you said, like you got to just jump.
Yep.
You got to just jump and say yes and do those things, because those are the things that lead you down those roads that you're never going to look back and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
You know, you're going to definitely look back and say, man, I wonder if I would have done that,
Yep.
where I'd be today, you
Yep.
know? So
100%. I love hearing that, man.
yeah, it's
Congratulations.
so wild, you know.
Yeah.
And if someone, from my background, where like I grew up in like an all-white town, I was the only
Yeah.
black kid, and I was like, there was this sentiment that like I was never going to be the one to never make it.
Mhm.
So I realized I knew how to do unconventional things to make it out of my situation and get to that next level. And I didn't want to fall into this narrative that people had for me.
No.
So I'm like, no, I'm going to do the things. And I took a couple of trips to places where I had 2 nickels in my pocket.
Yep.
And I just made it there.
And you just
and
make
I
it.
was like, I'm going to have to make some cash while I'm here
Yep.
to get a plane ticket home, But I did it.
Those have been my favorite trips, though.
Right?
Those have been my all-time favorite trips, where you just don't have any money, but you're like, F it, I'm going to go and let's figure out what happens, and we'll figure it out on the way. And those are the most incredible trips I've ever been on.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
wild, So those are the things that like change your life, and that is the
100%.
spice of life. Man, it has been so awesome
so much
having
for
you.
having me.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely.
And I know this is like just the beginning of your story and like the first couple of chapters of
Yeah.
your like complete crazy world that's going to be. And I know I can't wait. I can't wait to go to one of these festivals one
Oh,
day.
yeah. I always
and
got a ticket for you.
See you up there. It's going to be awesome. Where can people find you, track your journey?
Yeah, I mean, probably the best place where I'm most engaged is this Instagram
Okay.
at Seth Fontaine,
Okay.
SethFontaine.
Okay.
Yeah, shoot me a message if you have any questions. Feel free to hit my DMs. I'll do the best I can to respond. I'm really bad at responding, so give me a couple days and I'll do what I can. But
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. Hey, make sure we're going to put all the links below.
Cool.
Check out and listen. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys got some gems, some inspiration, some value out of this conversation. Such a young man with just so much more ahead of him. So that's the whole premise of this, is giving you that knowledge, giving you that advice and that value to maybe give you that inspiration to say, you know what, I'm going to do that. Maybe if you're on the edge and you have that fear like many of us have, maybe conversations like this help push you past that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. No matter how you're absorbing this information, thank you. Hope you learned something, and I will see you next time.
thanks for having me.